Biden is a compassionate father, and that seems to be the best defense comedian Jim Gaffigan has against the quote-unquote Biden crime family accusations. Let's watch his conversation with Joe Rogan.
Well, I think, look, you know, Joe Biden's relationship with his son or, you know, who obviously struggles with addiction. I mean, look, half of our friends struggle with addiction. It's like, you know, he's a compassionate father. Is there some of that, like, some, you know, let's make some money with our influence after we left office, or even
during
when,
office,
or
when he was
even
vice
when we were
president.
senator or stuff like that? Is there some of that? Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of that.
But compared to Trump, compared to like Jared getting a $2 billion contract, compared to like, you know, like even the documents, like the documents that like Biden had or Pence had, versus like Trump literally showing the documents, some of them being of, I think we're going to find out, being really inconsequential. I'm not saying he was selling them. I'm not saying, I don't know if he was, you know, it was like a big swinging dick move. I think that's different than, you know, Pence having some documents in his house that he shouldn't have.
That's some whataboutism. But Trump is not a defense here, and they're trying to put Trump in prison on multiple fronts. He is being held accountable for the alleged crimes that he committed. We're talking about Joe Biden, who's currently the president, and we're talking about what is alleged to have been 20-plus phone conversations with Hunter Biden and with business executives, business partners in Ukraine. That's not just being compassionate to your son. Those were business. What is alleged is business calls.
Yes, I did a fraud. I'm in the family business, and I did a fraud with my son because it's family, not because
I'm Italian, so business and family. You know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you with my caricature there, Robby. Yeah, look, it's outrageous.
You got some nerve.
This is why I think Gaffigan was trending on Twitter yesterday. Look. Liberals are going to liberal. There is this knee-jerk response that comes up anytime we talk about Biden corruption. What about Trump? Because there is this feeling that Trump's got largely off scot-free from having a lot of inappropriate relationships. But with this family stuff, I mean, Trump even now isn't being prosecuted for giving Jared Kushner a job or some of the behavior of Ivanka and her personal business sales relationships that were potentially in violation of whatever emoluments, blah blah blah. Like that stuff. There was never a real effort to hold them accountable. I think partly because everybody knows that all the rich and famous people do this, and nobody wants to be told that their darling offspring, their fail sons and daughters, aren't going to be able to avail themselves of the same kinds of opportunity. That being said, it remains true that this is, at very least, a terrible optics issue for Joe Biden, and him trying to use I love my son as an excuse, or the veneer that the Bidens are good people of integrity as a reason why people shouldn't challenge specific concerns about their behavior is really craven.
Right. He was, as Joe Rogan pointed out, he was the vice president at the time we're talking about the Burisma stuff. Again, we brought this up earlier. Trump impeached for the first time because of something having very much to do with this, with what Joe Biden said on recorded bragging about his influence over the Ukrainian judicial system in a bottom line way that helps Burisma. And now, again, we have these allegations, the phone calls, at the same time that he said he had no knowledge and nothing to do with the business interests of his son. His son, who, you know, Hunter, we were going, before we were talking about this earlier, we were just kind of, you know, Wikipedia, refreshing ourselves with all of the nepotistic little things he's benefited from all the time, from his legal career. He ended up at Yale.
He transferred to Yale from Georgetown after not being able to get into the University of Delaware. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Georgetown is a T14 a top law school. Yale is the #1 law school in the country. This is someone whose personal record of achievement does not seem commensurate with the opportunities he's gotten in both an academic context and in a professional context.
Was appointed by George W. Bush to the board of Amtrak. Essentially was Amtrak's Democratic de facto lobbyist. Amtrak officially can't have any lobbyists, but that was basically his job, a spokesperson on behalf of Amtrak for no other reason than his last name.
And before that, graduated from law school, and instead of going into your typical legal career trajectory, went to go work for MBNA, later Bank of America, which had such close ties to Biden as a senator from Delaware that Biden has been referred to as the senator from MBNA. So that was his first job out of law school. Then he gets his Amtrak position. Then he's kind of flailing around, and during the ends up with this $50,000 a month from Burisma, having no experience in the oil and gas sector. And we're supposed to, again, be hypnotized by this refrain that the Biden family has such integrity that we shouldn't be looking at this sideways. Now, there's a specifically craven development here. That the mainstream media seems to be buying into this. We have a clip from MSNBC in which not only is the Biden family being used as a kind of a shield for their individual behavior, the halo around the Biden family, but specifically the tragedy of the elder Biden son, Beau Biden's death from cancer, is being used as an excuse for why Joe Biden might have violated professional norms to engage with his son and his business deals in the way that's being alleged. Let's take a look.
Could you just, with specifics, tell us these phone calls that were a matter of such discussion yesterday, like what were they about? What would then Vice President Biden say in these conversations? Walk us through what happened.
Right. So let's put this in context. Beau Biden got very sick in early 2015. He died in the spring of 2015, which was right in the middle when Devon Archer had his business dealings with Hunter Biden. At that point, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden began to speak every day because they were both devastated by Beau's death. They spoke every day. The witness testified that over his 10-year relationship with Hunter Biden, there may be approximately 20 times when in one of those conversations, Hunter Biden would put his father at a dinner, not at a business meeting, at a dinner that he was having if he happened to get a hold of his father, and would ask his father to say hello to whoever was at the table. And that was essentially the extent of it. It was unclear, and the witness testified, this is not me saying, that the witness testified that a lot of times, most of the time, Joe didn't even know who the people were at the dinner table. So this was just simply, this may have been Hunter's effort to say, hey, this is, the vice president, this is my dad.
So because the family was spending so much time together in the wake of the tragic death of Beau Biden, that exculpates Joe Biden from getting on phone calls where he didn't even know who was on the other end of the line and allow his son to represent that he had some influence in the White House?
And he's talking about, that was just, as you said, craven, because we're clearly talking about several different types of phone calls. I certainly believe that in the wake of Beau Biden's untimely death, that they would be in more regular contact. Sure,
absolutely.
And discussing that. And Joe Biden is an emotional person. He's not a robot at all.
He seems like a good father.
So I totally believe that they would be talking regularly. That is so different, but I don't believe that's going to be different from the kind of clout chasing calls where he's talking to people and he puts dad on the phone. Like those aren't going to be emotional calls about Beau Biden. The business calls, that's going to be something else. That's so different. So that was a total non sequitur for him to say they're talking more because they're grieving. But then that's not the kind of call you described immediately after that.
Absolutely not. And it's a weird, I don't know. That is just, I cannot believe that the media would engage in that kind of covering. I do believe that Joe Biden would engage in it because he's done so in the past. I would be remiss not to mention this moment during the 2020 campaign where Joe Biden put out an advertisement that cited Beau Biden's death and the experience of going through his cancer treatments in the hospital, his experience with that kind of a tragedy, which is legitimately a horrible tragedy, for why he didn't want to support Medicare for all, saying that connecting tenuously Obamacare and the need to preserve Obamacare to the fact that he had personally experienced a healthcare crisis like so many Americans. But unlike so many Americans, he could afford for his son to be treated. Unlike I think 50% of people who have a cancer diagnosis in the family experience medical bankruptcy in the United States of America. So again, there's this two-tier system where he is able to avail himself of these medical treatments that so many people aren't, and then to use that as a justification for excluding more access to health care is, again, I think a kind of pernicious weaponization of one's own legitimate tragedy to undermine the public interest.
We'll have more Rising right after this.